here, you probably know me, but my name is Emily Rose, and I teach tarot readers and the mystically minded to read Lenormand like they are talking to a friend. And if you don't know what Lenormand is, Lenormand are these sassy, to the point cards that really just get to the heart of the matter pretty quickly, and you actually read them like a sentence, so they're very lexical in nature. If you are brand new, don't know what Lenormand is, I do have a fabulous post on my and questions can be anything about Lenormand or divination, card reading, whatever, anything in that realm. Feel free to pop those in the comments. What I wanted to talk about here today is the Tower card. This is a card that I get asked about a lot. And the main question that I get is, how do I know what the Tower card means when it shows up in my readings? So that is pretty much the main question that tends to come up. I'm just gonna make sure, I just lost the live feed on here, so I just wanna make sure it's still good to go before we continue. Okay, yes, I see it here. Perfect. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for letting me know it sounds good. Perfect. Okay. So when it comes to the Tower card, a lot of people say they just don't know what it means when it shows up in a reading, right? So how do you know what it's referring to? So to start out, I want to start with a quote. And I feel like this quote really embodies the Tower card at some level. And this quote is from Louis Kahn, who's an architect, and he said, "The first thing that an architect must do is to sense that every building you build is a world of its own, and that this world of its own serves an institution." So I love that, because when you picture a tower, you picture a big building, essentially, right? A tower, when you picture it, it was built with many hands to withstand time, typically, especially if you look at an old tower. And with a tower, it's a very strong, stable, sturdy structure, and it's often solitary. So even though there might be other towers or other buildings around it, it's on its own. It's a solitary structure on its own. And then once you get past just the physical appearance of a tower, what goes into it, right? What's inside a tower? Well, there's some type of a mission, there's some type of an organization or institution that resides within that tower, right? So you think of past towers, in the past, I mean, it could be, it represents a kingdom, it represents, or it houses some type of a church or something like that. In present day, the tower houses corporations or organizations, right? So those are the things I think about when I think about the tower. And when it comes to the key words associated with it, the main ones that I think of are an institution or organization. I think of solitary, something that now, when it comes to, I might be freezing here, so we'll just give it a second to catch up. Okay, I think I'm catching up here. So, okay, here we go. So when it comes to interpreting the tower, those are some pretty different meanings, right? When you think of the tower, you think of the keywords. Again, I just saw a few people joined. So the keywords are organization, an institution, bureaucracy, formalization, alone, right? Those are 5 different keywords, and other people may have other interpretations in addition to that. So how the heck do you know what it means when it surfaces in your reading, right? If you're, I see some Lenormand Foundations people are here, so you're going to say it with me. It's all about the context. It's really up to the context. And what I mean by the context is, what question are you asking? So when you have your Lenormand spread, what question are you bringing to the cards? Because the cards respond directly to the question that you ask. So it really comes down to that. So let's just talk about the general contexts that could come up, right? So when it comes to tower interpretations, there are two main camps that we kind of talked about, right? Well, three technically. So we have the work context, where we have organization, bureaucracy, that kind of category, right? Then we have alone, or sometimes formalized can be in there. So we'll just stick with two. So those are the two kind of categories we have, right? So when we're in a work context, we're almost always talking about some type of an organization or institution, right? So when it comes to like a question and you're asking about, what does my work life have in store over the next 9 months? Maybe you have a box spread that you're doing that with, and the tower comes up maybe next to the stork, and the stork's modifying it. Then that would be, the institution is moving in a forward direction. It's moving in a positive direction, right? So when the tower shows up there, it's not necessarily talking about one specific person. It's talking about the organization as a whole. It's representative of that whole body. And this can also come up in a work context. If you say, what kind of job might I get next? Maybe you get like the tower in the book, then that's going to be education, an educational institution, likely. Could also mean a secret institution. Maybe you're going to work for the CIA or something. But yeah, so those are just some ideas. I have a lot of friends that work in higher ed, so that's what I tend to see the tower book as. So the other thing that the tower can represent, especially when it's next to the letters, is like bureaucracy and paperwork. Whenever I do a daily draw and I'm going to the doctor, it usually comes up with tower letters, or sorry, letters tower is usually how that comes up, and is like bureaucratic paperwork, right? That's how it comes up. So you know you're going to be filling out the forms, you're going to be doing what you do at the doctor's office, right? So the reason why I come up with bureaucracy too is, when you think of a big organization, making any kind of change or movement takes a lot of legwork and a lot of formalities, right? You have to do everything in a certain system or mechanism. And so when the tower comes up, it can often mean that. It can often mean bureaucracy, red tape, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's a tower in the work context. If we move on to the love context, this is where I think people really get tripped up with the towers. They see the tower there and they're like, organization, we're talking about love. This is where the tower primarily for me means solitary or alone. So that's usually what it means. So if someone asks like, what is that person's relationship status? And you get heart tower or tower heart, really either one would be okay there. They're alone, like alone, single, right? So that's what you could see it there. So I tend to see it as alone, or if there are people who are in a relationship and the tower comes up, it can often mean like isolation. Someone feels isolated. They feel like they're not connected. So that's how I tend to see the tower in romance readings. It can also be a male organ, eggplant emoji inserted here. It can mean that if you're in a sex context, that's really what it could mean there. It often, I do relationship readings, but that I tend to do more work readings. So that's not my forte as a reader, but I do see that I've seen that come up a couple of times that way, but primarily it means alone or isolation. Okay. And then the other context. So this other context is where I do see people kind of tripped up here too. And that's when we're in an advice context. So if you're in an advice context and you are not quite sure what the tower means, I think it can mean a few different things. the way that it comes up for me is I'm usually asking in advice, how can I take whatever I'm doing to the next level? What's the way I can do that, right? Sometimes a tower can come up as you need to consult with a bigger organization. You need to communicate with a bigger organization, right? Sometimes it can mean that, depending on what the project is or, you know, what I'm asking about. But oftentimes what it's saying is I need to formalize it. So what I mean by formalizing it is taking what you have and bringing it to the next level by putting your stake in the ground and saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to formalize it in some way. Maybe that means you get some business cards. Maybe that means that you show your work to other people. Maybe that means that you start your website, right? Like whatever it is, you're formalizing it in some way. Maybe you get your business license. So I can see the tower come up in that way, like it's time to formalize this. But those are the main ways that it comes up for me in an advice spread. It could also come up as a loan, right? And this is where intuition in Lenormand really comes into play, because you have a few different options for what it could mean when you're in a context like that. And so the first thing you want to do is refer to the question and think, what makes the most sense with the question that I have, right? And then you use your intuition. And people ask me all the time, how do I build my intuition? How do I know what the cards mean? And Lenormand Foundation's people, I know, broken record, you got to do the daily draws. Do daily draws, read for different kinds of people for fun, and then you see what comes up, right? Because then you're going to know, oh, when I was in a context like this last time, it came up as this. And you're going to have that knowledge in the back of your brain that you can pull up at the right moment. So that's really how you do that when it comes to when you're unsure what the tower means. But in general, you can always refer back to the main camps, right? You're in a work context, organization, institution, bureaucracy. Pretty simple. When it comes to relationship, it's usually alone or isolated. When it comes to advice context, it can be formalizing, it can mean alone, it can mean referring to a large institution. You just need to use your intuition, okay? Alrighty, guys, that's what I have on the tower. I do have a whole post on the tower on my blog, and I will post all of those for the replay after this. And there's sample spreads there. There's card combinations that are there for every single Lenormand card, so you can see what the tower looks like in combination with every other Lenormand card. Just examples. It's not an exhaustive list by any stretch. It's just to start getting your own brain going. And if you would like to have all the Lenormand cards at your fingertips in terms of what their meanings are, I do have a Lenormand cheat sheet, and you can find that at emilyrosedivination.com/cheat sheet. And I will put all of those links on the replay. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to pop those in the comments. I did get one question from Instagram asking about the crossroads, and not tower crossroads, but just about the crossroads in general. We're going to do that one. I don't want to commit to next week, but probably next week. We're going to do that one. Or not next week, sorry, next month at the beginning of July. So if you asked about that, we will be doing the crossroads next. That'll be the next Lenormand card that we cover. Okay, cool. Let me take a look here to see if anybody has any questions. Okay. Y'all doing technology with lives? It's not simple. Okay, here we go. Okay, I will give you guys just an extra second here. But in terms of what's coming up next, so Choose Your Own Adventure is coming up next week, so there won't be a live next week, but you get to choose your own adventure. I'm actually going out of town. And then the following week, we're going to do 2-Card Tuesday, so that'll be really exciting. Okay, and this next 2-Card Tuesday we're doing later this month is going to be really cool because we're doing a really hard card combination. And when I do a live on it, it's the biggest misconception that people have about Lenormand, or the biggest tripping point that people have when it comes to Lenormand. So I'm really excited to talk about that. Okay, Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me here. And I cannot wait to be back on here and for Choose Your Own Adventure next week. And I will see you guys later.